The annual Kingsley family reunion brunch was in full swing, sunlight glinting off heirloom silver and crystal glasses as relatives took turns casually boasting about new country club memberships, real estate acquisitions, and Ivy League internships. I sat quietly at the far end of the long dining table in my grandfather's restored Georgian manor outside Charleston, South Carolina, nursing my coffee and listening. My cousin Charlotte, always the center of attention, dabbed her lipstick-stained napkin and gave her signature self-satisfied smile. "Looks like I'll be the youngest portfolio manager in firm history," she said, flicking her perfectly manicured nails. "Goldman practically begged me to take the position." Applause rippled from her parents. My mother nodded with forced enthusiasm. "That's our Charlotte, Harvard and hedge funds, a true Kingsley." I offered a polite smile, thinking about the email I'd received just before brunch, the one confirming that HelixScore, the biotech AI company I launched 5 years ago, had just hit a $3,800,000,000 0 cents valuation, and that Forbes had officially selected me for their Women to Watch feature. "So, what about you, Maya?" Aunt Colleen turned with a syrupy grin. "Still doing that internet thing?" "AI modeling for genomic sequencing," I answered evenly. "And yes, still doing it." To them, I was the eccentric cousin who had turned down Stanford's MBA program to keep working out of a cluttered basement in Greenville. I was 35 now, and they still treated me like I was chasing some adolescent fantasy. Charlotte raised her glass. "That's cute. Tech stuff is fun, but it's not exactly managing 9-figure assets." She had no idea her firm's latest predictive investment tool ran on HelixScore's engine. "Technology I designed." I said nothing. Sometimes the truth doesn't need to be spoken to make its presence known. "Maya," my uncle smirked, swirling his mimosa. "Ever think about getting a real job? You're not 25 anymore." I thought about the acquisition offers sitting quietly in my inbox, from Apple, Nvidia, and Amazon. Each one was worth more than the combined real estate portfolio of everyone at that table. "I'm doing just fine," I said, sipping my coffee. Charlotte gave a theatrical snort. "Right, renting in Greenville, still driving that clunky old Honda. Meanwhile, I just closed on a penthouse in Miami." "With your dad co-signing the loan?" I replied lightly. The table went quiet. Charlotte's smile twitched. "At least I've done something worthy of that support," she muttered, her tone sharp. "What exactly have you built?" My mother leaned in, her voice gentle but edged with concern. "Girls, let's not do this." "Maya, sweetheart, there's no shame in making a fresh start. Maybe look into something a bit more secure." I set down my cup deliberately. "No need. Forbes is interviewing me next week for their Tech Billionaires cover story." The silence that followed was absolute. I didn't add another word. Uncle Brian cleared his throat, trying to recover the mood. "Your cousin could help you get a foot in the door at her firm," he said. Feigning kindness? "That's right," Charlotte chimed in, her voice syrupy. "I'm sure we could find something that fits your skill set. Something like data entry. You're decent with computers, right?" Laughter sprinkled across the table like spilled salt. Even my father cracked a smile. "I'm happy where I am," I said, neatly folding my napkin. "Happy being a nobody," Charlotte snapped. "Let's face it, Maya. Some people lead, others just drift." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Forbes. And the next chapter was just beginning. Probably another message from Forbes, finalizing the press release for tomorrow's global announcement. They'd selected me for their next cover story. Tech visionaries meet Maya Kingsley, the biotech pioneer reshaping the future of healthcare. "I should get going," I said, rising from my seat. "Early shift at your little lab?" Aunt Colleen asked with a theatrical smirk. "Still camped out in that run-down building downtown?" What they assumed was a dusty rented lab space in Greenville was actually a facade. The real HelixScore HQ spanned 3 secured floors in a research park just outside Charleston, complete with level 4 biocontainment, private investors, and a federal grant pipeline. But no one here had ever visited or asked. "You can't leave now," my mother blurted, a bit too quickly. "Charlotte hasn't even mentioned her new Ocean View villa." Audit with this year's bonus, Charlotte said, eyes glittering. Though I guess it's hard to relate when you're still chasing that startup dream. I paused in the doorway, hand resting on the carved frame. You know what's strange? I said, turning slowly. Not once has anyone asked what my company actually does. Why would we? Charlotte scoffed. It's not like you're curing cancer. If only she knew. Helix Core's algorithms had already accelerated gene therapy approvals across 3 continents. Our work was quietly being deployed in national pandemic preparedness models. We were developing synthetic biology frameworks that could one day eliminate hereditary diseases. But yes, just playing around. Maybe you're right, I said, adjusting the strap on my Italian leather tote. Some of us are just wired differently. Finally admitting I've won? Charlotte smirked, sipping her wine. No, I replied, thinking about tomorrow's reveal, just saying we define victory on different terms. She blinked. What does that mean? I smiled. Oh, and Charlotte? You should probably check tomorrow's Forbes. Why? Charlotte scoffed. Did they run another fluff piece on women in tech startups? Something like that, I said, smiling faintly. I stepped out into the crisp, low-country evening, the scent of salt air and magnolia drifting on the breeze. Their laughter still rang from the dining room behind me, but it felt distant now, like a show I'd long since stopped watching. My phone buzzed again as I reached the graveled drive near the guest parking area, not where I actually parked, but where they assumed I had. Tucked around the corner beneath a canopy of oak trees was my real car. A matte black Lucid Air Sapphire. I slid into the driver's seat. The custom leather interior glowed with soft blue light as the dashboard came alive. One new message. Confirmed, live at 9 a.m. EST. Congratulations again, Maya. I let out a slow breath. Then I smiled, turned the key, and drove away from the Kingsley estate. Away from the old narratives, the small minds, the subtle jabs wrapped in wine and silverware. Tomorrow, the world would know. And so would they. Back at the table, I imagined Uncle Brian still droning on. Your cousin could probably help you land an entry-level gig at her firm, he'd say, tone soaked in condescension. That's right, Charlotte would add sweetly. I'm sure there's something basic you could handle. Maybe filing? Or at help desk? I mean, you're okay with computers, right? Laughter would float again across the long antique table. Even my father might chuckle. But I'd be gone by then. I was happy where I was. Not because it was easy, but because it was mine. Some people are built for imitation, others for innovation. And me? I was already rewriting the future, one headline at a time. Early meeting tomorrow? Aunt Colleen asked with a smirk, swirling the last of her Pinot Grigio. At that little shared lab space you rent in Greenville? What they all assumed was a second-hand lab, squeezed between auto shops, was just a decoy. The real Helix Core headquarters sat inside a secure research campus outside Charleston, spanning 3 private floors, flanked by military-grade server banks and a clean room under federal contract. But no one here had cared enough to find out. You can't leave yet, my mother added quickly, trying to lighten the mood. Charlotte hasn't even mentioned her new summer villa on Kiowa? Audit with this year's performance bonus, Charlotte said proudly. But I suppose real success is hard to recognize when you're still tinkering. I paused at the ornate doorway, my hand resting on the carved mahogany frame. You know what's funny? I said, turning back. In all these years, not one of you has asked what my company actually does. Why would we? Charlotte shrugged, sipping her wine. It's not like you're curing diseases or anything. If only she knew. Helix Core's AI was already accelerating drug development pipelines for major pharmaceutical companies. Our systems had reduced clinical trial timelines by 40%. We were building tools that could personalize medicine for every human genome on Earth. But sure, just tinkering. Maybe you're right, I said, lifting my Italian leather bag, one that cost more than her entire wine fridge. Maybe some of us are just wired differently. Finally admitting I'm ahead? Charlotte asked, eyes gleaming. No, I said, already picturing tomorrow's Forbes headline. Just saying, we don't all define success the same way. She blinked. What does that mean? I smiled. Oh, and Charlotte? Yeah. You should check tomorrow's Forbes. Why, she laughed. Did they highlight another local startup? Something like that, I said, already halfway down the front steps. Not the dusty Civic I use for family events, but my real car, tucked behind the hedges, a matte black Lucid Air Sapphire. I slid into the driver's seat, the interior bathed in the subtle blue glow of its custom dashboard. One new message. Forbes cover confirmed. Link goes live at 9 a.m. EST. Congratulations again, Maya. I smiled, turned the engine over with a low purr and pulled out of the Kingsley estate, leaving behind the echo of old doubts, forced smiles, and selective memory. Tomorrow the world would know, and so would they. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you most, hit that subscribe button and follow what comes next. Because trust me, everything is about to change. I know, I said calmly into my headset, voice steady. I personally rejected your last 3 acquisition offers. The price wasn't even close. There was a clatter on the other end, glass shattering maybe. Then Charlotte's voice, shrill with disbelief. You're my vendor? I've been bragging about our success using your platform. I leaned back in my ergonomic chair, seated in the corner office of HelixCore's private headquarters. Funny, isn't it? I said. All those times you offered me an entry-level position, you were pitching it to your company's tech supplier. My phone beeped. Incoming call. Mom and Dad. Long second. Charlotte, I said, switching lines. Hi, Mom. Dad. Maya Lynn Kingsley, my mother snapped, voice sharp with old authority. What is the meaning of this? The meaning of what? In this Forbes article. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? That I built something that mattered? You never asked. You were too busy clapping for Charlotte's bonus and beach house. But $5 billion? My father broke in, stunned. That's more than the combined net worth of our entire extended family? I finished, voice calm. Yes, by a long shot, actually. I tapped my screen, pulling up my executive dashboard from HelixCore's investor console. Oh. And Dad, I added, almost gently, you might want to review your retirement portfolio. Those safe stocks you always talked about at dinner? What about them? He asked, suddenly cautious. I hold controlling shares in most of those companies now. A sharp inhale, silence. Maya, we never meant to ridicule me, doubt me, treat my work like a phase unless it fit into your template? I said, not angry, just done. The line went quiet. You know what's funny? I continued. If either of you had Googled HelixCore any time in the last 5 years, this wouldn't be news to you. Another beep. Charlotte was back. This is ridiculous, she snapped. I did everything right. Ivy League, private equity, the partner track, and I built something real, I said. I created, I led, I scaled a company from concept to market leader. I let that sit for a moment, then added casually, oh, and HelixCore is reassessing all vendor contracts next week. That includes your firm. You can't be serious, Charlotte barked. Why not? I replied smoothly. Isn't that what you kept telling me to learn? A knock. My assistant, Kara, peeked in. Miss Kingsley, CNBC is setting up for your segment. You're live in 20. Thanks, Kara. I turned back to the phone. Maya, my mother jumped in, about that little lab you rent downtown? Oh, that, I said, laughing softly. I actually own the entire research campus, all 6 buildings. Before they could say another word, I ended the call. The wall of ultra-wide monitors in front of me lit up. Real-time updates from HelixCore's global teams. Zurich, Seoul, Toronto, AI systems humming with precision, feeding breakthroughs into live clinical datasets. My phone buzzed again. Charlotte, we need to talk about the vendor contract. Mom, dinner this week, just us. I let out a long breath. Success hadn't changed me. It had just made ignoring me impossible. Dad, I always believed in you, sweetheart. Aunt Colleen, your cousin needs a door opened. Can't Maya help her? I silenced the phone. Then I adjusted the lapel of my charcoal blazer, smoothing the fabric as I turned toward the studio. The CNBC team was prepping final sound checks. Below the scrolling headline ticker, the banner read, Helix Core reshapes global biotech Maya Kingsley, the billionaire they overlook. Kara appeared at the doorway again, slightly breathless. Miss Kingsley, your cousin Charlotte just arrived downstairs. She's demanding to see you. I tapped the edge of my tablet and pulled up the security feed. There she was. Power suit crisp, heels sharp, clinging to the Forbes magazine like it was oxygen. Her eyes darted as she argued with reception, the image of someone no longer in control. She can schedule a meeting through vendor channels, I said, voice level, just like everyone else. Kara hesitated. And your parents, they're on their way up. I gave a soft, amused laugh. Tell security I'm unavailable. I have a company to lead. All those family brunches where I stayed quiet, letting them talk over me, laugh past me, dismiss me. But this wasn't brunch. This was global broadcast. And as I stepped into the studio, the lights hit me. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I was exactly where I belonged. The CNBC anchor smiled, her tone warm but inquisitive. Miss Kingsley, you've built one of the most transformative companies in biotech AI, yet managed to fly completely under the radar, until now. How did no one see this coming? I tilted my head slightly, considering. Some people only see what they expect to see, I said. They measure success in square footage, last names, and loud titles. But innovation doesn't always look the way they've been taught to recognize it. It doesn't always come from the noisiest voice in the room or the most polished resume. Behind my calm expression, I thought of Charlotte, still downstairs pacing in frustration, and my parents rushing to rewrite their version of history. And now? The anchor asked. Now that the spotlight is finally on you? Now, I said, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of my lips. They'll see the future shaped by someone they once overlooked. Because this moment wasn't the peak, it was the ignition point. Helix Core's next phase, merging genomic AI with adaptive quantum security, would make today's $5 billion, 0 cents valuation look like a mere footnote. My phone buzzed briefly beside me. Charlotte, please, I need this contract. My bonus depends on it. I didn't even look twice. I powered the screen off with a single swipe. The studio light turned red. We were live. Because real builders, we don't chase applause. We create. We lead. And even when recognition lags behind, we keep changing the world. So, if you've ever been the quiet one, dismissed, underestimated, told you're not realistic, I hope my story reminds you. You don't need validation to build something incredible. I didn't create Helix Core to prove anyone wrong. I built it because I believed in the science even when no one else did. And now, the same people who rolled their eyes at my ideas are sending in meeting requests. If my journey resonates with you, leave a comment, tell me where you are in your story. I read every one. Let's grow a community where the underestimated become the unstoppable. And if no one's told you this before, let me be the first. You are worth betting on. Hit subscribe if you believe success doesn't need permission. Because I'm not done building. And together, we're going to change the narrative. Maya Kingsley.